All right, let's begin. In a world overflowing with information and noise, how do you discern what's godly, what's wise, and what truly matters? That's why this exists. That's why the Wise Steward exists. What is the Wise Steward, you may ask? The Wise Steward is a weekly live video series and newsletter on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and it's crafted for Christian healthcare professionals. It's a combination of this live session and a newsletter that I produce on Fridays that I post on LinkedIn. It's for Christian healthcare professionals who want to grow in their faith, their career, and their calling. Each session blends um, biblical wisdom with practical insight, empowering you, the healthcare professional, to lead, to communicate, to manage your time, to recover from burnout, and make decisions that honor Christ. So let us get on with this presentation for this week. The topic is not communication, it is leadership. So um, I think it'll be too much to edit it right now, but welcome. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin, and welcome to this week's episode. My name, again, Kevin. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a financial planner. And I believe stewardship isn't just about money, it's about managing all that God has entrusted to you, to us, including in this case for our topic today, which is leadership. And so I just pray that I'm able to do this well and that you get value out of it. So first thing, what's your goal? Leadership in healthcare is demanding. You know this. But what makes godly leadership different from just good leadership? Let's go deeper together. It begins with your goal. What's your motive? I've been listening to a lot of content from Patrick Lencioni. He's a well-known author and he's well-known in the leadership industry. He's been on numerous podcasts, wrote numerous books. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's even in different languages, maybe even over 30 languages. And so yeah, but secular leadership often chases success, control, or recognition. I can affirm that because that was kind of my motive. Not kind of. That was for most of the time. My heart truly wanted those things. Wanted success. Wanted control. Wanted recognition. But godly leadership starts with the goal of Christ likeness. In First Corinthians chapter 10 verse 31, it says, whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. Whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Your leadership should move others toward Christ, not merely toward results or performance. There's a well-known individual back in the 1940s in World War II, and his name is Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He embodied this kind of leadership. Meaning he, in this particular time frame of World War II and being in Nazi Germany, he embodied this kind of leadership that is that is moving others toward Christ. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was born in status and privilege. He could have lived a comfortable life pursuing academic accolades. Instead, he chose to follow what chose to follow Christ into discomfort, obscurity, and ultimately martyrdom, as Nazi Germany distorted the role of the church for political power. Bonhoeffer refused to remain silent, and that is such a courageous move in that time frame, knowing that anybody that went against the Nazi party was for sure a death sentence. He resisted. He resisted not for his reputation, but for integrity of the gospel and the good of others. As Nazi Germany distorted the role of the church for political power, Bonhoeffer refused to remain silent. His life echoed a deeper question: am I leading for outcomes or for eternity? In healthcare, this kind of Christ centered leadership might look like these things. And I want to preface what I'm about to say with, you don't necessarily have to live in a World War II scenario or a Nazi Germany of an environment to shine as a good leader. Uh, I shared that the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer just to for to give us, to give you, to give me encouragement of that great people that have come in the past that have done great things to share the good news, to share the gospel, in to lead in a way that it's Christ centered. So for us now, obviously, uh, and I believe this with all my heart, that we living in America, in the land of today, by far is it's not even close to what other countries are experiencing right now. Um, but that's not to say that every individual doesn't face their own battles, because we do. We face our own battles. We're running our own race, and your battles and my battles might not be the same, but they are real battles. So I don't want to minimize what it is that you're experiencing. That's not the point that I'm making. Uh, and so, what could Christ-centered leadership look like in your environment, in a healthcare setting, in a clinic setting, in a peer-to-peer or subordinate to leader scenario? Maybe it could be like slowing down to truly listen to a colleague who's facing that struggle, who's facing a battle right now. Maybe that's the first thing you can do, is to slow down, truly listen, open your ears, and to somebody that you're working with. Maybe it could be advocating for a patient when it's inconvenient. Maybe it's choosing honesty over self protection when the stakes are high. Maybe there's some things that are happening, little politics within your clinic right now, within your environment right now, that it's causing you to um, choose between your principles or your job or your career, right? So choosing honesty over self-protection when the stakes are high. Like Bonhoeffer, leaders today are called to pursue influence that reflects Christ, not just efficiency, applause, or control. So be fair, and the next point I'd like to make is being fair and impartial. If you've served in the military, if you've served in the army specifically, one of the stanzas of the non-commissioned officer creed, sorry, one of the stanzas of the creed of the non-commissioned officer is, be fair, I will be fair and impartial when recommending both rewards and punishment. That's one of the phrases there. So that's why I have this thing on here: be fair and impartial. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shows this type of leadership, shows this type of impartial leadership in he showed it here in the United States, amid the fierce injustice of segregation and racial hatred in 1960s America. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood out not only for his courage, but for his deep impartiality rooted in scripture. As a Christian pastor, his leadership wasn't driven by partisanship or favoritism. It was grounded in the belief that every person is made in the image of God. Dr. King's vision of the beloved community was radically inclusive, not because it was politically convenient, but because it was biblically faithful. He refused to elevate one group's dignity by diminishing another's. He called for justice for Black Americans without harboring hatred toward white Americans. His marches included both the oppressed and the allies because godly leadership doesn't show partiality. It lifts the lowly and humbles the proud. By embodying what was the effect of his leadership, we could still feel it today. We still experience it today. By embodying impartiality, Dr. King restored dignity across lines of division. His leadership led to legislative changes, but more importantly, it invited people to see one another as fellow image bearers, not threats or categories, but brothers and sisters. His refusal to demonize his enemies made space for hearts to be transformed, not just laws. So, what can we take out of that? Godly leadership includes everyone, not just the high performers, the easy personalities, or the ones who agree with you. It's often that we lean towards those people because it's easy, it's simple, it's harder to deal with at work, a colleague or a boss that you don't see eye to eye on. When you lead with impartiality, people feel safe and seen. Biases breaks down. The culture becomes healthier, and the morale increases. So here's the first question that I'd like for you to answer in the comment section below. Do I lead with favoritism or with impartial love of Christ? So answer in the comment section below this question. Do I lead with favoritism or with the impartial love of Christ? Servant leadership. This has been thrown around. I even like this idea that all leadership should be servant leadership. But for the sake of the third point that I'd like to make, servant leadership. Godly leadership looks like service, not control. In Mark chapter 10, Jesus redefined greatness when he said, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant." That wasn't just a radical idea, it was a blueprint of for how kingdom-minded leadership should look. True leadership isn't about elevating yourself, it's about lowering yourself to lift others. It's about serving others for the gain of others. In healthcare, this plays out in real ways, supporting instead of micromanaging, asking questions instead of issuing commands, or asking questions before assuming, sharing burdens instead of assigning blame. You don't build teams by showing power, you build them by sharing responsibility. This idea was echoed. Again, I've been listening to a lot of Patrick Lencioni. One of the things that I'm a part of or facilitate a weekly group through the Faith Driven Entrepreneur. And it's a great organization. I've learned so much about how to be or how I should view my business, the entrepreneur things that I'm doing now with faith in mind, with Christ in mind. So again, Patrick Lencioni echoed this idea of that you don't build teams, you don't build great teams or successful teams just by showing authority or power. You must examine, um, before you can lead well, you must examine why you want to lead, your motive. There are two motives that Patrick Lencioni shares. One is reward centered, seeking attention. So one is reward centered, which is seeking attention, influence, or control. The other is responsibility centered, seeing leadership as a weight to carry for the good of others. The reward centered leader is prone to burnout and frustration because you're trying to control everything. You're trying to put everything on your shoulders. You're trying to put everything with your might and your power. Because the reward centered leader is prone to burnout because and frustration because leadership will always demand more than it gives. And any leader that that any leader knows this, that there is so much more demand than what you can get out of leadership. And again, I think that's that idea that leadership will always demand more than it gives supports this idea of servant leadership. You have to serve. True leaders must serve, and that's why all leadership by default should be servant leadership. However, that's not the reality. The reality is there's plenty leaders, and I've been in that position where I was seeking for my own gain. I was seeking for my own power. I was seeking control. I was seeking um, to get to the next level. I was seeking more of what I wanted out of that position. So the responsibility centered leader, especially one who follows Christ, understands that giving more than you receive is exactly what leadership is meant to be. And when that motive is love, not personal gain, when that motive is love, humility, trust, and not personal gain, even suffering becomes helpful. Faith driven leaders may lose influence, be misunderstood, or face rejection, but they keep leading with compassion. Why? Because Jesus did. And so, if we are to become more like Christ, we know that He said the world will reject Him, and if we believe Him, in turn, it's known that the world rejects Jesus. But that's not to stop Christians to still preach the word and make disciples. So, second question I'd like for you to answer in the comment section is this: am I leading to be served or to serve? Am I leading to be served or to serve? Godly leadership never clings to control. It gives itself away for the good of others. People follow leaders who serve. In First Peter chapter 5 verses 2 to 3, it says, "Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight not under compulsion but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge but being examples to the flock." Peter is writing to church elders in this text in First Peter chapter 5, the fifth chapter of First Peter. I believe that's the last chapter. Let me double check. I believe it's the last chapter. Let's see. Can I see it? I can't see it in time. Yes, it is the last chapter. And spirit so Peter is writing to church elders. Spiritual elders are spiritual leaders scattered across the regions facing hardship and persecution. So Peter is writing to the church, and in this specific section to church elders, and they are the spiritual leaders. um, the entire letter encourages believers to endure suffering, live holy lives, and stay faithful as exiles in a hostile world. So the entire book of Peter, of First Peter, revolved around that of to endure suffering, live holy lives, and stay faithful as exiles in a hostile world. In chapter 5 specifically, Peter turns his attention specifically to the leaders of these communities, of these local congregations. He exhorts them to shepherd the flock, drawing on pastoral imagery. Shepherding the flock comes to mind as a shepherd and its sheep's and his sheep's. So he exhorts them to shepherd the flock, drawing on pastoral imagery that was central to both Jewish and Christian thought. The term shepherd implies guidance, protection, provision, and care, modeled after Jesus, the chief shepherd, which is shown in verse 4. So here are some key phrases: shepherd the flock. of God that is among you. The people in your care, the people in the care of the elders belong to God, not you. So what does this mean to you as a leader? What you could apply, what you could take from this is, what if, just like a shepherd, shepherd your stock, your flock well, not berating them, not misleading them. Shepherd them well and steward them well. Steward your resources well. Exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly. Don't lead because you have the. What I'm not saying is I'm not saying you're an elder, but here are some of the applications that we can take away from this text. Don't lead because you have to because you have to. Don't lead because you have to or feel pressured. Lead because you want to, from a willing and joyful heart. So it starts with the heart. It begins with the heart. Align, and if you're a Christian, align your calling with God's calling for you and your life. Not for shameful gain, but eagerly. Don't use leadership for personal profit, status, or manipulation. And again, you're not going to be a perfect leader. I'm sorry to break the bubble there. You're not a perfect leader. Um, but directionally, you should be leading for leading to serve others, not for personal gain, not for personal profit, not for status or manipulation. Serve with sincere passion and integrity, not domineering, but being examples. Christian leadership rejects control, overreach, coercion. It rejects that model. Instead of demanding respect, godly leaders model it. Live a life that is that can be respected. They leader Christian leaders lead by example through humility, service, and Christ likeness. Third question I'd like to ask, so you can comment on the section below: am I leading to elevate myself, or am I serving to uplift others as a faithful steward of what God has entrusted to me? Am I leading to elevate myself, or am I serving to uplift others as a faithful steward of what God has entrusted to me? As I close this live session today, I'm getting better. Using Riverside has been helpful in facilitating this. Using the software called Riverside FM is super helpful in just on the technical side of this. So I've asked you a couple of questions so far. I want to leave you with three more questions to answer in the comment section below. First one is, what part of leadership is hardest for you right now? What part of leadership is hardest for you right now? Second, where do you feel most tempted to lead in the flesh rather than the spirit? Where do you feel most tempted to lead in the flesh rather than the spirit? And lastly, do you feel seen by your leaders at work? Why or why not? I want to encourage interaction in the comments below. So, as you go into your week, remember, leadership is not about climbing a ladder, it's about building a bridge. One others can walk across to experience God's grace through you. What are some things that you can do? Well, look for an individual within your team and encourage them. So look for an individual in your team and encourage them. Number two, serve someone within your sphere this week. Serve someone practically, serve someone within your sphere, not just your work. Maybe it's in your church, maybe it's a ministry, maybe it's in your family. Serve someone. And lastly, define your leadership goal. What is your leadership goal? What is the motive of your leadership? If this episode helped you, share it with a colleague. Follow me here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, because this is both going out on those two platforms, and check out the newsletter that I will release tomorrow for more information. See you next week. Until then, onwards and upwards. See ya.